Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. Our mission here at Reading with Your Kids is all about connection. Connecting kids with books, families with each other, and communities through the power of story. In every episode, we're joined by incredible authors and creators whose work lights up kids' lives. We would love for you to help us grow our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods Podcast, Addict, Audible, Amazon Music, Player FM, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really wonderful show for you today. Gail Martino is here to celebrate her picture book, Feathered and Famous, Meet America's All-Star Birds. And later in the show, we'll take a listen back to an episode with Jill Esbaum, the author of Stinkbird Has a Superpower. Hey, my friends, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by the Fred the Snake series, written by Dr. Peter Cotton. Hey, I have a question for you. Have you ever wanted to take your kids on an unforgettable adventure around the United States without leaving your couch? Well, buckle up, because Dr. Peter Cotton's Fred the Snake and Friends Explore the USA series is your family's ticket to adventure. From historical landmarks and bustling cities of the East Coast to the heartland wonders and hidden gems of central USA, all the way to the breathtaking parks and sun-soaked coastlines of the West. Fred the Snake and his friends are your guides on a journey filled with fun, friendship, and discovery. Kids just won't be entertained. They'll be learning about geography, culture, and the incredible diversity of our country, one adventure at a time. These beautifully illustrated books are perfect for curious kids, road trip dreaming, and families who love to explore together. So whether you're planning your next vacation or just imagining one, let Fred the Snake and his friends be your guide. Explore the East, discover the Central, adventure through the West. Fred the Snake and Friends Explore the USA, East, Central, and West by Dr. Peter Cotton. Great additions to your family library, because the greatest journeys we take are the ones we share with our kids. Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, a great, fun book by Joan Hullab. Hey, it's time to meet the smelliest superhero you've ever encountered. Introducing Fart Boy and Reeky Dog from New York Times best-selling author Joan Hullab. At P.U. Smellementary School. Yes, you heard that right. An ordinary kid named Bartholomew makes an extraordinary discovery. His farts have superpower. But wait, it gets even crazier. There's a secret lab hidden beneath the school. An evil alien scientist named Professor Gravy Pants and a stinky sidekick turned good guy Reeky Dog. Together, they must stop a world domination plan that really stinks. That's right. This is a superhero story packed with action, friendship, and lots of laughs your kid will be talking about all day long. And guess what? This is just the beginning, because Fart Boy and Reeky Dog is a hilarious 2-book series your family is going to love. So, if your kids love superheroes, if they love goofy, giggly humor, and if they love stories that celebrate being different, then it's time to let it rip with Fart Boy and Reeky Dog. Grab your copy today and get ready to laugh, read, and discover that even the stinkiest powers can be used for good. My friends, we are going to have a great conversation about something that's near and dear to my heart, birds. Our guest here today to celebrate her new picture book is called Feathered and Famous, Meet America's All-Star Birds. Get ready to meet the author, Gail Martino. Gail, how are you?
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Jen.
Happy to have you on. I'm excited about this because for the past, I guess, 28 years, I have been living next to a wildlife sanctuary, which is primarily a bird sanctuary. It's literally, I could throw a baseball from my deck into the sanctuary. And so we have lots and lots of feathered friends here in our home. I love watching them. I have no idea which birds they are. You know, there are a few that I can identify, and certainly are amazed at the hawks that fly through our property. But I'd like to know some more, and I think I'm going to find out more today talking with you.
Oh, great. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start off Feathered and Famous. What's this book all about?
So this book is an introduction to the United States national and state birds and how it got started, and then how you can identify them and find them around you, no matter where you live in the United States.
Well, that's cool. I do think I know. In Massachusetts, I think the state bird is a chickadee. Am I right about that?
It is the chickadee, and there's some fascinating things about the chickadee.
Oh, so let me know them.
Okay. Well, first of all, the chickadee, you share that state bird with the state of Maine. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating about the chickadee is that this is a bird that collects seeds. And it collects a lot of seeds, and it's a very small bird. And so when you collect seeds, you have to figure out where to hide them so that you can eat them in the winter. Now, of course, in the Northeast, where there's 4 seasons, if you hide something, the world looks very different in June than it does in January, right? So how do you find it? Well, the chickadee actually grows parts of its brain that's responsible for memory in the fall to make it ready to retrieve all of those seeds that it hid when times were lean. And that's one of the reasons why it's a great symbol for the state of Massachusetts, because among the attributes is that it can handle a hardy winter and it's really smart.
Wow, that's really amazing. I tell you, Gail, part of twice a year, our backyard becomes a rest area for birds during their migration, and so we'll go out. I don't have it on the calendar, but I'll just walk out in the backyard, and there'll be about 10,000 birds in the trees, and they're all talking. And then at some point, someone says, "Time to go," and they all leave together. It's amazing. I don't get it. Birds' brains are so teeny tiny. It's how, and they migrate from Canada down to Mexico and all over the place. How are these beings so intelligent?
There are so many wonderful things about birds and their adaptations to exploit food sources by migrating from the south to the north, taking advantage of great nest sites and so forth. And each species has something really special about it. And one of the things that this book does is it talks about each one of the sort of highlights from that particular species that makes it so special, and why a state would want that special thing about that bird to represent its state.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the state bird of Connecticut, where you are.
Sure. So the state bird of Connecticut is the robin, and the robin, of course, is usually the harbinger of spring. It's one of the first birds that people notice on their lawn as things start to warm up in April. And so it's a very, it gives you a sense of hope and renewal and place, and home. So that's one of the reasons why or some of the reasons why Connecticut selected the robin. A couple of other states selected it too, and like many birds, these some of these state birds are actually shared across several states because they're familiar. They have behaviors that people admire because they're beautiful, because they're elegant, and a variety of other reasons.
Yeah. That robin, we had a robin a few years back build a nest in one of our bushes in front of the house and had laid eggs and had the babies come. So we kind of were able to watch it, and it was deep enough in the bush we could stand back and kind of look in without disturbing it. One of the things, again, going back to that intelligence, the nest that this robin built was identical to a robin nest when I went online, to learn more about it. It's like they ordered it from Amazon or something. I mean, it's not like they go to robin architectural school or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So many birds, and a lot of times the females build the nest. They're incredible engineers, and they know exactly how to build their nest. Now, the robin's nest includes some mud at the base, and then there's twigs that get intertwined with it. So it not only knows how to weave the sticks together, but it knows how to use mortar to make it solid on the branch. Yeah. And then there's so many different kinds of nests. When I was growing up, I grew up in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and my father introduced me to birds by putting up a bird feeder. Mm-hmm. And he would tell me about, that he would explain that the birds come at certain times. But the thing that I remember most is a Baltimore oriole, which had this long pendulous nest. So it's like a sock. And it sways, and this bird is really beautiful. It happens to be the state bird of Merlin, and it's black and red. And what's so interesting is that the female has to learn how to weave it together so that it can swing and sway even when there's hurricane force winds, but also be strong enough to hold the eggs inside properly. So I just find that absolutely fabulous. And I was very fortunate to have a father who piqued my interest by feeding the birds and explaining to me. Not all children have that opportunity. I was lucky enough to, and that's actually part of the reason why I wrote the book, so that I can pay it forward to other children.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about why you wrote this book. Obviously, your dad introduced you. One of the things on my Reading with Your Kids podcast, we talk about the fact that reading with your kids is the start. It's the foundation, and it leads to cooking with your kids, and in your case, birding with your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, one of my formative experiences is my father pointing out the birds, and he was a casual backyard birder like so many others are. But it allowed me to develop a sense of observation, and a sense of interest in the world, and a sense of, what is that? Why does that happen? Why do they come certain times of year? So it piqued my curiosity. Later on, I became a scientist, and and that was my vocation for a number of years. And I think that that early start came from being able to observe the world around me, which came in part from looking at birds.
Yeah. So that's that whole ability to observe. I think that's something that I think a lot of people just figure, oh, kids, yeah, of course, the kids are going to be curious and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's more than that. I think it's something that we need to teach kids, especially these days when they have so many devices and they're watching things that are moving and changing so fast that they're not even noticing anything. All they see are these bright flashing lights. I think to sit down with our kids and to help them really observe and look and see what's going on. I think that's a beautiful gift we can give to our kids.
I 100% agree. And you know, it's nice to go out as a family and to take a walk and just look at the world, and, you know, and what a gift you could give your children to teach them about, you know, why things are the way they are, and to, you know, cultivate a sense of curiosity in them. And, you know, children today are very interested in digital devices and so forth. And there actually is, I think there is a place for that. For example, consider eBird. So eBird is a free application where you can log observations about the birds that you see when you go birding. And there's also the Merlin app that helps you identify, again, it's a free app, both from Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And it helps you identify the songs of birds. Mm. And so, you know, you can bring these along. Sometimes, you know, I see families on walks, and the young people are really interested in these things, and it actually helps boost their interest because they're finding out as they go. So I think there might be a place both for digital and for natural.
Yeah, yeah. Why did you choose this time to write this book?
Well, you know, there's a couple of key reasons. One is this year is the 250th anniversary of the United States. Mm-hmm. So it's a great time to reflect on our national and state symbols. You know, why do we have birds as symbols? What is our national bird? What is my state bird? You know, so asking those kinds of questions. You know, a lot of, and in the summers, a lot of families take vacations to other states. Maybe they'll go across a number of states. It's an opportunity for them to check out the birds from other states as well. But the importance of right now, this year as well, is that it's actually the 100th anniversary of the first state bird, almost to the day. It was February 26th, 1926, when Kentucky started it all and identified the northern cardinal, the redbird, as their state bird. And then all the other states followed. And over time, you know, it's taken almost 100 years. And there's lots of changes that have happened in those 100 years. But certainly every state now has a state bird, and many of them have more than one, a state raptor, a state game bird, even a state symbol of peace. And this is the 100th anniversary of it all getting started.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us, please, why, other than, you know, it's interesting and it's fun, but I think there's something deeper driving you and to create this book and the other books, because you obviously have a love of birds and nature. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you think it's so important for kids to develop this love of nature in birds?
Yeah, so I think that birding or an interest in the natural world is a very easy way to develop a number of skills in young people. It may start off with observation. That can blossom into STEM related skills. You know, they have to count things. They have to understand the difference in the coloration, the behavior, and so forth. You know, when young people appreciate these things around the world, it leads to an appreciation of taking care of the world that we share with them. You know, so I think it starts children on a path to appreciating the world around us and taking care of the earth that we share with the natural world.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that you are in your day job is a scientist. What kind of things are you sciencing?
Yeah. So I have a PhD in neuroscience, so I was interested in how the sensory systems interact. That's what I went to graduate school for. I taught college for a while, and so and then I moved over to a corporate career, and I was a product developer in research, and that's a research and development role. So often in science roles, more applied science, and so I was responsible for a lot of discoveries that led to some of the biggest brand name products that everybody uses in their house. So I think that I credit my early experiences and learning about the natural world and so forth and leading me in that direction. And also, you know, the projects, now I'm an innovation consultant. And the projects that I love the most are the ones that have a sustainability element to them. So working with mission-driven brands on how they can develop their products and support growth in ways that are good for both people, stakeholders, and the planet.
Awesome. Tell me, what's the most, or the bird, the state bird, the national bird that you find most interesting?
Oh my God, this is like asking me which child I like the best. But I'll tell you a couple of things that I think are super interesting. So, for example, take Louisiana. Now, the state bird of Louisiana is the brown pelican. And so the brown pelican was actually associated with Louisiana for over 100 years before they officially adopted it as a state bird. Now, this is a bird with a big pouch, but for a number of years, the numbers of brown pelicans had declined sharply. And then when Louisiana adopted it it's now on its flag, it's the official state bird, you know, it gets the attention it needs to help it come back in terms of conservation. So I think that one, and there's so many others like this, are symbols of conservation successes and how we're trying to do better. And actually, a number of the latest state birds have been selected because of conservation successes.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I noticed that on your website that you have a book coming out in the fall that celebrates birds of all of North America.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm going around the world. So I started with the United States and all the birds of the United States, and then later this year I'll have a book about all of the national birds of the 23 countries that make up North America. And then there'll be South America and Europe and Africa and so forth. I think it's important that, that young people learn about geography through interesting birds, and they're able to say, hey, that's a really cool bird. I want to learn more about that country and so forth. So I think it's a great way for them to learn about nature, history, and geography.
Yeah. When I was down in Panama, I heard about and I saw pictures of it. I didn't see one in person, and I think I'm kind of glad, because I think I would have been terrified. But there was an eagle. I think it's they call it a harpy eagle.
Oh, yeah, the harpy eagle. Mm-hmm.
6 feet tall. And, yeah, I would have lost it at that point, I think.
Yeah, and now that's a fascinating raptor, and it has big claws, and it eats monkeys and sloths, and that's an endangered bird. And hopefully, if people are going down and touring, and once they learn about, the amazing species it is and how it inhabits its ecosystem, hopefully that will help further drive conservation.
Gail, you might be able to help me with this. I didn't realize this until somebody pointed out the observation to me. I've been living in the Reedville neighborhood of Boston now for almost 30 years. We are as far away from downtown Boston as you can be and still be within the city limits. It's a beautiful neighborhood, but I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, somebody said to me, we don't have any pigeons here in Reedville. And ever since then, I've been aware, and I've never seen a pigeon here in the neighborhood of Reedville. And the bigger neighborhood of Hyde Park that Reedville is a part of, we see them, but here, They don't exist. That's so weird. We have doves, but no city pigeons. Any hypothesis?
Well, that's interesting. Now, a lot of times people don't realize the birds that are around them. So Boston does have a lot of pigeons, but they like ledges, and they might be higher up than you're used to looking for birds.
Okay.
So especially in the winter, you find them on tops of buildings. You find them, so you're looking up, not down. So okay. That's one thing. Uh-huh. Now, why not that neighborhood? I'm not exactly sure. But what I can tell you is that during the pandemic, when nobody was out, there were wild turkeys walking around, in downtown Boston. So they're around.
Turkeys, yes. And I don't know if you realize this, but turkeys in Boston are very aggressive. And, yes, I stay clear of turkeys. We did have one living in our backyard for, most of this past summer. We named it Stella. It was unusual because it was by itself.
Yeah. Now, so let me tell you about the turkey that I had at my house here. If you are nice to a turkey, you will have a best friend for life. They have a great memory. They identify people very easily. If you're ever aggressive towards them, you have an enemy for life. So I had a turkey here, and he was the best guard dog I ever had. So whenever the Amazon driver came to deliver, he would gobble so that I knew somebody was coming to the door. Hated the Amazon driver, and the Amazon driver was very afraid of the turkey. Uh-huh. But as long as I went out, I could calm the turkey. But so be kind to animals, and you will get it 10 times back.
We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Feathered and Famous, Meet America's All-Star Birds, the new book that's coming out in the fall, and the books that you've written in the past.
Sure. If you go to brightwingpress.com, you can find my books, and they're also available on Amazon.
We had a great time speaking to the author of Feathered and Famous, Meet America's All-Star Birds. Our guest has been Gail Martino. Hey, Gail, thanks for being with us.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, Jed. Thank you so much.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Iowa. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called Stink Bird Has a Superpower. Please welcome to the show, Jill Esbaum. Hey, Jill, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Jed.
I'm delighted to have you on. If my beautiful wife were here, she might tell you that my superpower was being a stink bird. But that's probably not what you wrote the book about.
I'm afraid to ask why. No, that's not exactly why I wrote the book. Do you want to hear the backstory?
I do.
Okay, well, I've done a lot of work for National Geographic Kids, which has been a pure joy. And one of the things they had me do was a series that featured the angry birds. And one of the books was going to be the angry birds who were going to be down in the Amazon rainforest. And they were going to meet a lot of different animals. So, having never been to the Amazon, I, of course, did a lot of research online and in books. And it got a little bit depressing because every animal that I researched was trying to eat some other animal to stay alive. It was the food chain brought to bloody and colorful life. No shortage of YouTube videos on that either, so that was kind of strange. But then I found the Hoatzin, which is a bird about the size of a pheasant or a chicken, can't fly very well, hangs out in flocks, and the refreshing thing about the Hoatzin was that nobody wants to eat it. And all it eats is leaves. So the thing is, those leaves go through the system so slowly, and it has a multi-chambered stomach like a cow. So when those leaves finally come out, they smell like cow manure. And that gives the Hoatzin its nickname of stink bird. So I really loved the stink bird for many reasons, but when I found out that their chicks are the only chicks in the world that have little claws on their wings, on the front of their wings, about halfway down, so that they have the neatest escape that I've ever heard of with birds. The parents build their nest, just loose stick nests out on a low branch that goes out over a rushing river. And they do that, which I thought at first seemed like a not safe thing at all. But they do that so that the chicks, when they're unattended, when the parents are off eating, the chicks are unattended. And even though nobody wants to eat the adults, the chicks don't stink yet. So they are a favorite food of snakes and predatory birds of prey and monkeys. Monkeys will eat them. So if a little bird sees that coming, they will fall off the edge of the nest down into the river. and then they can swim underwater back to shore, and they just hang tight until they see that the threat is gone. And then they use those little wing claws along with their feet to actually climb out of the water, back to the tree, back up to the nest, and they're safe. And I thought, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard, bird-wise.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write a book about just them. At first I was told that one-off books about one animal were really tough to sell, and maybe I should find other odd animals that I could put into the same book. But I really liked that stink bird, and I thought just the name stink bird has kids, it gets their interest right away. So the fact that we could call what chicks do a superpower just led to, one thing led to another. And my initial manuscript, I'll call it a manuscript, not a book, because you don't write, you write on spec, basically. Mm-hmm. So in that, the dad, Stinkbird, was telling kid readers about his kind and why he was so proud to be a stinkbird, despite his name. And, the chick wasn't introduced till the very end, and the chick didn't speak. And that manuscript was rejected probably a dozen times. And so one thing, I think my superpower is looking at a manuscript and knowing something's missing. So then the next step is figuring out what that something is. In this case, I thought, what if the chick could be brought up to the forefront, and immediately, your brain starts making things work and mm-hmm. figuring out how that could happen. And gosh, it was so fun because the chick is just a typical toddler, curious and enthusiastic and clueless about its own superpower. So that became the fun, the dad getting to tell the chick about his own superpower.
What a neat way to tell the story, and certainly tell the story, the true story of a bird that we probably here living in the States are probably never going to run into.
I had never heard of it.
Yeah, certainly not. Yeah. You seem to have a great love of introducing kids to creatures that we're probably not going to meet in our everyday lives.
Well, that's part of it. And let's face it, the other part of it as a writer is that regular animals have already been talked about. And there's a lot of books about bears and bunnies and cats and dogs. So eventually kind of need to find something that breaks out a little bit. So,
hey, I want to bring, because we have a lot of authors listening to the show and aspiring authors. And one of the pieces of advice that we've heard over the years from some fantastic authors is this idea of write what you love. And I think that that's certainly wonderful advice. But as you were just saying, if somebody loves bunnies and dogs and pigeons and bears, well, there's a lot of books out there about these things. Can you kind of give some advice that kind of takes into account what you were just talking about, that when you're writing about what you love, you gotta also have to write about something that's marketable. So maybe you kind of have to go out and find something new to fall in love with?
That, I think, is a really smart way to put it. Yes, find something new to fall in love with. I'm an animal lover anyway, so why not find the quirky ones that kids may not have heard of? Well, now a lot of kids watch Wild Kratts, so Kratt Brothers introduced a lot of unusual animals. But, when you're a writer and you write a dog story, you're already making the odds go up for that story to be accepted. I mean, go down, I should say. Because what if they get 10 dog stories that week, or worse, that day? I mean, so if you have to find a completely new way to tell a dog story. That's what you want to do. Like, I have a couple of dog stories, a couple of cat stories, and they're in my, I want to write about this file, and they're loosely outlined, but I haven't yet attacked the actual writing, because you have to come up with a new and different spin that's entirely your own. And when it comes to writing what you love, I don't know how many times somebody has come to me and say, you should write about this. And I think, no, because I'm not passionate about it. You are. You should write about that. So you really have to find the angle that will work. And to do that, you have to know the market. You have to know what's out there. And that just takes time and a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned talking about, you know, getting through that process of, you know, getting an editor, getting a publisher's attention, getting them to want to buy your story. And we talk here on the podcast, and we're talking to aspiring authors and published authors that, and share with them the reality that there are literally thousands of books published every single month. And if only a small percentage of books that are written get published, then that means there are tens of thousands of books pitched to publishers and agents and editors every single month, and that they're getting in it. I mean, I feel overwhelmed sometimes with all the pitches that I get every day of guests wanting to be on the show. I can't imagine how overwhelmed a publisher or an editor must be with all the different submissions that they get. So you're making a great point. You have to stand out, and it's really tough to be that one out of 100 dog books to stand out, as opposed to being that one book about a stink bird that's going across an editor's desk.
Not that didn't have to stand out too. But, you know, once I got the chick in there and I had so much fun with it, I was so fortunate that an editor at Putnam saw it, and she grabbed at it. And then when she told me who was going to illustrate it, I'll tell you, I about fainted. That was Bob Shea, who to me is, you know, one of my literary heroes. And I think everybody I know that has kids has at least one Bob Shea book in their collection. So I think he just took it and ran with it. And seeing what he did, and then seeing what he's done for the next one in the series next year, which is called Parrotfish Has a Superpower, just makes these such a joy to talk about. Mm-hmm. So it's one reason I'm happy to be on here to talk about them. They're just adorable. I mean, just bright and funny and engaging, and he made them what they are, in my opinion.
One of the things that we talk about with authors, and it's something kind of a learning curve that I was delighted to learn and be introduced to, is that part of the skill of writing a picture book is leaving room for the illustrator to tell their part of the story. What part of the story did Bob tell that really kind of surprised you or especially delighted you?
Oh, gosh. I do not know right offhand. I would have to sit and look through the book. They're just things like when the Papa Stinkbird talks about how there are other creatures in the forest that eat other creatures. That's how they stay alive. There are these little eyes peeking out of the forest here and there, or you'll see a very subtle snake in the background that blends in beautifully. And I mean, those just, you can't do that as an author. That is something that only an illustrator can bring to the table. And it just delights, you know, when I am constantly surprised by what illustrators do. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. One, I know you were excited about talking about the superpower that the stink bird chick has. You're also very passionate, I've read that, of letting kids and adults know that each and every one of us has a superpower. How did you come to embrace that idea?
I do believe that. Well, to me, one of the saddest things is when I'm talking with kids and somebody says that they believe that there's nothing special about them. And I think, oh, honey, there's so much. And at the same time, I just think, okay, what can I do to try to pump that up, especially when I'm just in a school visiting for a day. I had a little girl take me aside just last week and talk to me about being bullied. And it just killed me, you know, and I thought, man, she was such a unique, creative kid. She showed me some of the art she'd done, and I thought, I just hate it that somebody doesn't appreciate that. But as for kids, I think this book in particular, I hope, will spark discussion in families. You know, what is it about you that's so special? We'll call it a superpower. it might be something that's a talent you're born with, or it might be something that is a life skill that you're really good at. Boy, you are really good at bringing people together and getting kids to play all together. That's a superpower. Mm-hmm. Or maybe something like, you are the best skipper in our family. That's your superpower. It could be, you are so patient, or you never give up. No matter what you try, you never give up. There's just things that kids don't think that way, so sometimes we have to help them along. And I think, wow, if this can spark that in a family or in a classroom, I am going to be a very happy camper.
Yeah. Well, I loved that you mentioned families having conversations about this topic, because that's what the Reading with Your Kids podcast is all about, which is inspiring families to have these conversations. And that is one of the main reasons I launched the show 6 years ago, was to help families understand, we talk about the benefits of reading with our kids and developing vocabulary and learning the letters, all that. That's fantastic. But to me, the great real benefits of reading with our kids are the bond that we develop with our kids, and also the opportunity to have conversations that are initiated kind of naturally and that really empower kids and bring us closer together, like the conversation that you were mentioning. Instead of just sitting down and telling a kid, hey, you're special, I love you, you're special, and you got a superpower. It's like, in one ear, out the other. But to sit down and have a conversation, hopefully inspired by reading Stinkbird Has a Superpower, and really kind of sitting down and helping a kid identify their own superpower, or helping to point out that, hey, this thing that you do that a lot of people take for granted, that is a superpower, and you should really embrace that and realize that you're unique in being able to do this thing.
And that's all the way up to adulthood. Mm-hmm. There are adults I know who think, oh, well, I'm just this or I'm just that. And I think you are so much more. When you're good at something naturally, you tend to think that anybody can do it, mm-hmm. which is odd, but I think it's true. So, anytime you can reinforce with anybody that, this thing you do is really something special, then that's a good thing, right? Yeah. Especially kids.
Yeah, it's true. With the passage of time and me almost at 100 years old, and through the magic of technology and social media, I am discovering the things that I took for granted that I did when I was a teenager. It had so much impact on people, and they're telling me, like when they rediscover me on Facebook, oh, this thing that you used to do and that, and you were so this and that. And I'm like, everybody was like that. What are you talking about? Why do you think I'm special? But it turns out that we are special, that we do have these gifts that we don't realize.
Exactly. And think how many opportunities we let pass by because we think we can't do something. Mm-hmm. I have an older friend who, I don't know, she found out all the different hobbies I love to do. And she said, oh my gosh, you can do anything. And I said, well, so can you. All you have to do is learn how. Right. It's a step-by-step process for anything you want. And what does it hurt to try?
Right.
I mean, you want to try to paint, so take some lessons. If you stink at it, then try something different. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was very fortunate, I think, to have parents that were 100% behind whatever we wanted to try and never let us feel like we couldn't do something. Even my parents, I was almost 40 when I decided to try writing for kids, and my dad was like, oh yeah, I can see you doing that. Mm-hmm. And that means everything. Even as an adult, it means everything to have somebody believe in you and stand behind you and be supportive.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because we say this and remind parents of this all the time, that parents, you are your kids' first and most important teacher. And I know it's hard to believe that, especially when they get to middle school and they're telling you how much they hate you every day, that you are still their most important teacher, and the words of encouragement that you give your kids are so important. And it's important to your kids when they're 2 and 3 years old, when they're 12 and 13 years old, And as Jill just reminded us, when you're like kind of a few decades away from middle school.
You know, Jed, and on the other side of that coin, one thoughtless comment from anybody out in the world can crush a kid.
Mm-hmm.
My son had a friend who didn't smile in junior high. Mm. And it was because he had a space between his front teeth. And it wasn't until that got fixed when he was a teenager, all of a sudden he was smiling all the time. And it's like, wow, what that child believed about himself was so not true. I mean, you know, somebody said something at some point along the way that made him think, okay, I'm not going to let anybody see this. Mm-hmm. And it was just, you know, they just take everything to heart, and their little souls are so precious that I think, you know, we have to do everything we can as parents and grandparents and teachers to, you know, bolster them. They get enough crushing from elsewhere. So.
Right. Yeah. Hey, you know, before we go, I wanted to talk to you about one of the books on your website that caught my eye is How Slow is a Sloth? And it caught my eye because my beautiful wife and I have spent some time exploring Central America and have run into a few sloths and have learned about sloths and learned that there's a difference between a two-toed and a three-toed, and I forget the differences off the top of my head. But I know they only come down from the trees once a month, and that's to go to the bathroom. But you have such a love of animals. I'm wondering, have you had a chance to really kind of go out and meet some of these exotic animals that you write about in the real world?
Only in a zoo, unfortunately. No, I have not been like to Costa Rica, like a friend of mine who got to hold a sloth and snuggle with a sloth. And I thought, oh, I would love that. No, let's say not yet.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Not yet. Not yet. And I wonder what your reaction will be when you finally meet a stink bird, if you'll want to cuddle with it.
Yeah, well, I'd have to go to South America, so I don't know. I may not want it on me, but I would love to see one. We had friends that did go to the Amazon, and they were showing us pictures, and this is before stink bird had a superpower was sold. And so I had the manuscript floating around out there, and she was showing me pictures from the Amazon, and she came to a picture of the stink bird, like group of stink birds, and I said, oh my gosh, stink birds. And she looked at me like she was shocked that I even knew what that was. And I said, oh yeah, I know the stink bird. I love the stink bird. And she said, yeah, they were really neat to learn about. And I said, well, I got a book about that.
There you go.
Maybe someday. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy that it's finally here.
That's wonderful. We should tell people where they can go to find that website that I was referring to so they can find out more about you and all the great books that you've created.
Well, you can see more about me and my books at jillsbaum.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at JSbaum. And I also, on Facebook, have an author page. Author Jill Esbaum is it. You can follow that if you want to see the latest. Be kept updated. Stinkbird premieres May 16th, so...
Wonderful. Well, we're so happy to be one of the first to share folks news about Stinkbird, and we want to encourage everybody to check out. Stinkbird has a superpower, not a superpower, a superpower.
That's another book.
And our guest has been the author of Stinkbird Has a Superpower, Jill Esbaum. Jill, thanks so much for being with us.
Nice chatting. Good to meet you, Jed.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. This episode made you smile or gave you something to think about? Please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at JedleyMagic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website, it's readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who make today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Gail Martino. Please be sure to check out Feathered and Famous, Meet America's All-Star Bird. Also want to thank Jill Esbaum. Please be sure to check out Stinkbird Has a Superpower. I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Jackson Saltalera. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better, more caring, kind, and empathetic place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.